Looks like we lost audio for a second there. Shout out Jay Henry in the chat. Hopefully y'all can hear me now. We were last talking about Javon Baker. We were last talking about Javon Baker for the Patriots. Thank you, Jay Henry, for pointing it out. Not sure what happened with my mic there. Good to see you, Jet. We were last talking about Javon Baker, clearly the best receiver in this Patriots room. Let's just call it how it is. Drake May obviously gets drafted number 3 overall. But Javon Baker, 86 percentile catch radius, a solid athlete overall. Nothing super elite about his athletic profile, but it gets the job done. 101.9 athleticism score, above average in his class. But this guy, a clear threat on the outside, a solid athletic profile to get the job done. And if Drake May is who people really think he is, then Javon Baker Drake May could be a good best ball stat going forward. And specifically, the Patriots want to make coaching changes here, and they're proving that by most recently giving out the news that the Eagles' director of scouting, Brandon Hunt, is interviewing for the Patriots' lead personnel job on Wednesday, something that Patriots fans should be excited about since Bill Belichick and his crew just not getting it done lately with scouting. So Brandon Hunt can add to that organization, definitely a robust addition. So the Patriots, if Drake May can be somewhat decent in his rookie year, this might be the first time we see Patriots receivers or Patriots players be actually worth the juice in fantasy. And speaking of Patriots receivers and underrated players, here's one that aligns perfectly with what I've been talking about. If you want a guy who has proven that he can be a red zone threat, a guy that has proven that he can hang with some of the best talents in the same wide receiver room and have fantasy relevant weeks. And someone, if he gets a decent quarterback, can score you touchdowns. It's KJ Osborne on the New England Patriots, who might end up being the wide receiver 2 in the room. And I want to bring up his 2023 stats because this guy, number 23 among all wide receivers in total route wins, and not necessarily a guy that jumps out like a DK Metcalf as like an obvious red zone monster or an AJ Brown, not an elite route winner per se, but he's not priced in fantasy drafts like that anyway. He's priced as a bottom of the barrel guy who might have 1 or 2 good weeks the whole season, and those are the kinds of players we like. Someone who someone who is underrated, someone who has had history of upside, especially in a pass-heavy offense. So if the pass rate goes up in New England just a bit, we like KJ Osborne for the upside. So another name to watch this offseason. Let's see if he gets affected by the coaching staff, etc. More on the recent news front, we have some rookies who I want to talk about. First off, let's talk about a couple of rookies whose situations are to watch for. Speaking of Calvin Ridley, well, Calvin Ridley is out of town in Jacksonville. He is on Tennessee now. So the Jaguars first respond by signing Gabe Davis. Not a needle mover if you have been an avid follower of any of the Player Profiler shows. Gabe Davis just never going to be a needle mover for any of us. I can speak for the family, okay? But they do add Brian Thomas Jr. And Brian Thomas, a good situation here. The Gabe Davis signing is not going to be a needle mover, obviously. And Christian Kirk, not only is he a little banged up coming off that injury from last year as well, but also Christian Kirk going to be the target hog down the middle of the field, a PPR floor monster, so to speak. But Brian Thomas Jr. is a guy that could really carry some upside if Trevor Lawrence can give you a fully healthy season. And I think it's gone under the radar how good Trevor Lawrence actually is when he is fully healthy. And you talk about a guy who has been elite on a per snap basis, a guy that has an elite athletic profile, a guy who is produced at the NFL level when he is healthy, when he's on the field. Christian Watson, I'm never going to get off the Christian Watson train. And oh, by the way, Brian Thomas's closest comp, Christian Watson. So what I'm saying is I've just thrown you 2 agendas at once. Brian Thomas Jr. and Christian Watson, it's all about health in their situations. Brian Thomas and Christian Watson, both guys that can give you low-end wide receiver one upside in 2024. Brian Thomas could end up being as high as a wide receiver two in his rookie class. Speaking of guys that could be the wide receiver two in their rookie class, got to talk about my number one. Yes, over Marvin Harrison. This may not be how we rank them on our website, but Malik Neighbors' closest comparison is a guy who maybe you've heard of him, Jamar Chase. And Malik Neighbors in a quarterback room that's always going to give people doubt in Daniel Jones and Drew Lock. But this is for upside here. And Malik Neighbors potentially poses the highest upside of anybody in the class other than Marvin Harrison Jr. Again, the athletic profile elite, the college track record of earning targets elite, 94th percentile. This is just a 20-year-old who is flat out a monster. He was drafted number 6 overall for a reason. I absolutely loved the draft pick for the Giants. And if you are in Dynasty, you hold talent for talent and not for situation. And Malik Neighbors reeks of talent. So Malik Neighbors potentially the rookie wide receiver one overall. And I wanted to mention a couple of other rookies as well who are not wide receivers. I want to talk about guys who have landed in good situations. I want to talk about the top 5 pick, Joe Alt, with the Los Angeles Chargers. I thought here that the Los Angeles Chargers might go for a tight end who I'll also mention in a little bit. But the Chargers basically said, we view offensive line as part of the bracket of weapons for Justin Herbert. And I would agree with Harbaugh and company here because Justin Herbert has been troubled a lot over the last few years, not just with bad wide receivers, but with the lack of time in the pocket. He's dealt with injuries because of that. He's dealt with having to carry an offense, Mahomes style, because of a lack of offensive line play. Just his entire team around him has been pathetic at times. But the Chargers take care of business a little bit with their offense by signing Joe Alt. But of course, they double down and not only trade a pick with the Patriots, which I'm still annoyed by, but they also use that pick on a guy who was many people's sleeper this offseason, should no longer be a sleeper. It's Ladd McConkey, 22-year-old, drafted at the 202. Best comp, Percy Harvin, pretty good there. Did well at the combine, which kind of sucks for his value because that kind of hired his value a little bit. I wish he had just done, mediocre at the combine so I could get him for cheap. Ladd McConkey just worth every bit of the price tag right now because this is a guy who did not necessarily earn the highest share of targets in college, but is a big play candidate every single time he's targeted the ball. And with Justin Herbert, that's the definition of a big play quarterback. So if you're looking for best ball stacks, you have Justin Herbert already. Go get yourself some Ladd McConkey because there's just not much competition. And we said the same thing about Quentin Johnston with the competition, but we didn't say that with the talent. And the Podfather, one of the biggest members of the industry on the Quentin Johnston, is not of the talent to be worth the price in the community. Go get Ladd McConkey. He is not Quentin Johnston. And his competition right now is Quentin Johnston, Joshua Palmer, and Will Dissly and DJ Shark. So go get yourself some Ladd McConkey worth every bit of the price. Another rookie with some upside here, not on the offensive front, is Byron Murphy. And Byron Murphy is a guy who is going to fit into the Seahawks defense like a glove. I love what the Seahawks did this offseason, not just with making sure, it was well known that, that Geno Smith was their quarterback of the near future, but they sent Pete Carroll to a different role in the organization and said, you know what, it's time to hang him up. You're not the guy for head coach. We need a more progressive mindset here. And Byron Murphy II, a perfect addition to a defense that kind of struggled, at times, something we're not used to seeing from the Seahawks. And he joins a defensive front that already has guys like Darrell Taylor, Nwosu, Boye Mafe, Tremont Jones, and Leonard Williams. Pretty good names there. And he adds another edge to that defense that will now be run by head coach Mike McDonald, the former Ravens defensive coordinator. So Byron Murphy II, someone that should help the Seahawks immediately in this draft class. Love the draft pick there. And it's one of the reasons I think the Seahawks are one of the more obvious sort of playoff sleepers in 2024. They should be much improved, keeping that offensive core and improving that defense. Couple more news out of the NFL front before we get to our final topic is audio is good. Audio is good again. A couple more names that I want to mention on the rookies front. Edgerrin Cooper and the Green Bay Packers. Let's talk about the Packers in general to segue into the last topic of our show. The Packers have done a lot of great things over the last couple of years. First off, Jordan Love should have proven the haters wrong by now. The guys that said that Jordan Love was never going to live up to Aaron Rodgers, the threshold, the standard that Aaron Rodgers has set in Green Bay. Jordan Love was going to be a disappointment. Jordan Love has a few terrible games, and all of a sudden it's Jordan Love was never the guy at Green Bay. Well, the Packers have done what many organizations really should be and haven't been doing with their young quarterbacks, is draft a quarterback with talent, but then also give him weapons. And they've done that. And something I mentioned a few shows ago is one of the things that the Packers failed at last year was staying healthy. And obviously it's, the main focus of that is going to be Christian Watson. But it happened with pretty much half their team where they just kept getting injury after injury after injury. And an underrated move this offseason was the Packers reassessing their entire staff, their conditioning staff, their health staff. So they've worked on that. And now they draft a guy like Edgerrin Cooper, who's a great value pick in round 2. Someone with great speed, with a guy that can fit into a blitz defense that Jeff Hafley will run. Guy that had 8 sacks, 17 tackles for loss in 2023 for Texas A&M. Now you pair him with Quay Walker, Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, Preston Smith, Devontae Wyatt. This front seven is going to be nasty. And it's what leads me to the final topic of our discussion today, which is the NFC North the most interesting division in football? Well, let's talk about each of these teams real quick. You have the Chicago Bears, who open up as on some books the second in odds favorites to win the division for good reason. They just drafted Caleb Williams, an all-time prospect talent, and they immediately they say, you know what, we're not going to waste time with letting Caleb Williams quote unquote develop. This guy's ready to win now, and they go ahead, give him they already had DJ Moore in place, and alongside that they give him Keenan Allen, they give him Rome Odunze, they keep Cole Kmet, they add Gerald Everett. So this is a team that's trying to win now, that's trying to, give Caleb Williams that high upside, that top 10 quarterback upside in year one. We love what the Chicago Bears have been doing there, but let's talk about the other teams. Let's give them the respect they deserve. First off, the Detroit Lions, they should have earned your respect last year by entering the playoffs, not just entering the playoffs for the first time in a long time for D-Town, but also nearly making it to the Super Bowl. I mean, can we just talk about how close they were to a Super Bowl under Jared Goff? Well, they've kept their entire core. They've kept Sam Laporta, who's an absolute superstar. They've kept Amon-Ra St. Brown and extended him an absolute superstar. And they still have their core in place with that offensive line. And this offseason, they've worked on their defense a little bit. So the Detroit Lions still deserve respect. But a team that could easily win this division if things go right in the health department, the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to circle back to this Packers offense because this Packers offense is just electric when they are healthy. They add Josh Jacobs, but I'm not going to make a big deal out of a running back signing. Not really sure why they felt the need to replace Aaron Jones with Josh Jacobs, but they have. And I'm not going to act like, regardless of who they kept at running back, it was going to be a big deal. I'm focused on this offense and this defense from a passing perspective. And Jordan Love with Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave, Bo Melton, Dontavion Wicks, and of course, some people are going to still love Romeo Doubs. I personally don't, but you still have to acknowledge the presence of him as a possession receiver there. With that offense fully healthy, this could potentially be the best offense in the division. That's even with Caleb Williams in that division, and even with that Detroit Lions, proven offense in that division. This could end up being the best offense in football, and not just that. They now have this crazy pass rush going on in Green Bay, and pass rushes we know in modern football so damn important in a league where everybody wants to rightfully pass the ball. So the Green Bay Packers, they're not. I'm going to say it outright. They're not just division contenders. They're Super Bowl contenders after what we saw in the playoffs from them last year. They desperately need health. We want to see them with a fully healthy season of their core. BJN in the chat says Rashee Rice out there sucker punching civilians, now all in on Brown and Worthy in best ball. Absolutely. And I mentioned at the top of the show about Xavier Worthy. Let's not forget Marquise Brown now gets the best situation he's ever been in. This is no disrespect to Lamar Jackson, the MVP, because, I've been one of Lamar's biggest fans his entire career. But it would be foolish to say that this is not an additional upgrade in situation for Marquise Brown. And Brown's a guy who at some point he was overrated because he wasn't this generational, league-altering alpha wide receiver that people once thought he was. But he is still solid at football in the sense of you tie him to the best quarterback of all time and Patrick Mahomes. This guy gets the job done. He is still a deep threat with the speed. But, of course, he can convert third downs alongside Travis Kelce with the best of him. So this is still, even with Rashee Rice potentially out a full season, this is still a better offense than last season with what they had with Kadarius Toney and company, right? So Xavier Worthy, Marquise Brown, Travis Kelce, that's certainly a good enough trio for Patrick Mahomes if, what we saw last year was good enough to win the Super Bowl. This Chiefs offense is going absolutely nowhere. And if you want to find reasons to hate on stacking Chiefs, go be my guest. But I personally won't be fading this Chiefs offense going down the line. So, yeah, thanks for calling out Marquise Brown as well. Lastly, in this NFC North division, I do want to talk about the most, perhaps the odd, quote-unquote, odd man out in this division. Although it feels disrespectful to say, if you look at some of the players they still have on their roster, the Minnesota Vikings have made some great offseason additions with their defense. They still have a defense that's worth the price of admission because they can still make plays and they can still have top 10 upside as a team defensively. And, of course, they upgrade at running back, with Aaron Jones. But, again, I'm not going to be hypocritical and make a huge deal of the running back situation. What I am going to make a huge deal of is potentially the best wide receiver in football in Justin Jefferson still being there alongside one of the best tight ends in football in TJ Hawkinson still being there. One of the best speed threats / deep ball threats in the league among young talents in Jordan Addison still being there. And, of course, the elephant in the room has to be the quarterback situation as they now have a platoon of Sam Darnold and J.J. McCarthy. This is not a take show, right? This is not for me to throw around my hot takes. But I'll say this. Does Kirk Cousins really turn a decent offense into a Super Bowl contender? No. So if you're asking me for fantasy football purposes, if I'm satisfied with Sam Darnold and J.J. McCarthy as a platoon, I'll say this. I certainly am. Because Sam Darnold proved that he could have top 10 fantasy quarterback numbers if he is actually the starter. And J.J. McCarthy is a guy who, the ceiling is obviously concerning. But if J.J. McCarthy can somewhat read defenses enough to win a job against a former first-rounder, someone who has had some success in the league, and Sam Darnold, that's an encouraging sign for a first-round quarterback who already has so much talent at his disposal. And I'll bring home the point with the following. Let's not forget that Nick Mullins and Joshua Dobbs, Nick Mullins and Joshua Dobbs had top 10 fantasy weeks when they were quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings. So let's just let that sink in. And you tell me that if J.J. McCarthy or Sam Darnold, whoever one wins the job, Tell me with the straight face that they do not have top 10 fantasy upside in 2024. I'll tell you what, you can't. That'll end today's show for Player Profiler today. Appreciate y'all for joining me for these 25 minutes. Come back to the Player Profiler News YouTube channel every single day of the off season, and I personally will see you next Tuesday for Player Profiler today. Maybe we'll have more motion on the rookies front. We'll get more news out of camp. We'll see maybe more than just a Malachi Corley screenplay on the Jets Twitter account. Shout out to those who were in chat, all 50-ish of you who were around for the whole show. Shout out BJN. And thank you for attending this episode of Player Profiler today. And we'll see you in the next one.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.